This was an encounter. I was approximately 30 feet away from it. I went back with a team of armed guys. My name's Nick Valente. I am a cryptozoologist, a Fortean researcher, and most of all, a boots on the ground field investigator. I'll give his first name, John. He's out of Australia. He's my boots on the ground guy in Australia. I started up a relationship over the internet with John about close to 4 years ago now. And he was telling me that he's a boots on the ground researcher out there. And as you know, everything out in the outback in Australia wants to kill you. I mean, they've got poisonous spiders, snakes, you name it, they have it out there. They've got the yowie, which is what you guys refer to as a Sasquatch. And they also have a dogman out there, because John was out there one time fishing in his boat. He had a good thing. He had about a 55 horsepower engine on the back of his boat. It's like a rowboat type of a boat. He's out there fishing. He's casting his line, and he sees on the shore. This is maybe about 200 feet away from him. He's in the middle of the water now. He sees on the shore a bipedal canine looking creature well over 7 feet tall, and it's growling at him, and it's looking at him, and it starts walking towards the water, and it goes in the water, and John is like mesmerized. And I mean, he's the kind of guy that goes in the woods before this happened to look for yowie, to look for different specimens of snake and spiders out there. And he sees this creature that he's never seen before in his life. I mean, this thing was like a super dark gray, like a slate gray, unlike what I saw. Mine was a very pitch black color. And the thing walked into the water and started swimming. John says this thing was swimming like an Olympic swimmer headed towards him. He kicked in his motor and he got out of there as fast as he could. Absolutely, because this thing was absolutely gaining footage on him. It was gaining on him. And he kicked his engine up to full power, and he didn't stop until he was 2 miles away from there, and he went into another dock. He wound up calling his wife. She went and got their other vehicle and got their boat and got it out of there. And ever since then, he's been like, he told me the story. He says this thing was swimming like an Olympic swimmer. And I agree with him, because I know from interviewing other people in the past that have been fishermen, and they've seen, dogmen. They've had like an encounter with a dogman slip into the water and swim towards them. I mean, that's got to be one of the most scary things in your life, especially if you don't have a motorboat, an engine strong enough to get you out of there. If you have to start paddling, I think you're going to be in trouble. This thing was really moving. These days, what John has done, because Australia is so huge, he's purchased a very high-end drone, with the 4 blades on each side and a super high-def camera. And what he does is he narrates as he flies this thing over the different forest areas that he goes to. I guess that's a better way to do it. It's a safer way for him anyway. So that's one of the stories. That's just from John being out there. Another fellow, I won't mention his name, but he's from Texas, the northeastern section of Texas. He and his wife have a little ranch, and it's fenced in with a chain link fence. Outside their fence is a red barn owned by whoever the person was that owned the land before then. He's had quite a few encounters with Dogman. What happened with him, how he got in touch with me and he told me about this. He said he saw 2 juvenile dogmen outside during the daytime, and they were near his chicken coop. And he didn't play around. He just let off a shot right at one of them. I guess he missed it because the thing was moving too fast. And ever since then, it looks like they just mess around with him all the time. Um, the interesting thing with him is that this has been ongoing now for about 5 months, and we're trying to figure out why the dogmen were there. Because at nighttime, when he was coming home from work one night, he actually saw a larger dogman. Now, the two he saw were juveniles. They're about 6 feet tall. The one he saw was a little bit over 7 feet tall. This is at nighttime. His lights were shining on it as he's turning down his driveway. And he got his rifle out immediately, and this thing disappeared. He's concerned that these things aren't going to be taking his livestock over there, which is, of course, something that any rancher, any, farmer is going to have out in that section. But we're trying to figure out why all of a sudden he's getting these sightings. And I asked him if there was a river near him, any water source. And he said, yes, there was. There's a water source pretty close. And then I said, it's funny, even though there's a water source, it's also a food source because there's fish in there for the dog man. I said, is there any building going on in your area? And there just so happens that there's a contracting company putting in houses about a mile away. And why this is interesting, and it's something you really need to note, is because when we take down the forest area, the forest creatures have to move. They have to go somewhere else. You take down the forest area, maybe these dogmen, the cryptids, have caves or burrows, or maybe man-made, mines or caves out in that area. And now they have to move. So that's the reason why that he actually started seeing him. And for the 5 years previous that he and his wife have been there, they've never had an encounter of any sort whatsoever. Now, something that you might want to have of interest to your people if they're interested in Sasquatch, and I've done quite a bit of research on this. What I'm going to tell you in the end, how it ends up. I got a call from from the founder of another organization that I had belonged to way back when. And he asked me if I could bring a team up to upstate New York, because I'm in New Jersey and I'm pretty close, and investigate this lady's claims, because she had sent him some pictures, and her backyard is about 100 by 100. At the end of her backyard, there is a tree stump that's 3 feet off the ground. And this is going to have significance towards the end of the story. They had cut a tree down in that area so that mostly her yard is tree free. It's mostly lawn. But within that 100 by 100 area, that tree stump stands only 3 feet off the ground. Her dad, she lives in this house alone. Her dad had built her up against her home with 4x4s. And this is New York State. So you have to go 42 inches because of the frost line into the ground, 42 inches down into the dirt. And then you pack the dirt. He built her a caged in area, approximately 3 feet by 6 feet long, with a gate. He fenced it in, and he fenced the top in because she was having raccoon trouble, or so she thought, in her garbage. They were tearing her garbage apart. Well, this lady, for some unknown reason, used to go out back and leave green apples and red apples and stuff on that tree stump. Now, this is a major thing that she was doing. And she had been doing that for, oh God, close to a year. And she'd go back there, and it was funny because the apples would always disappear all the time. And she's thinking, oh, it's the forest creatures taking the apples. But mind you, there was never any, apples bitten up or any pieces of it there. Everything was gone. She had to go for 4 days away from her home and take care of her mom and dad. Within that 4-day period, she was not leaving those apples back there anymore. And what happened was, her backyard area, she had a grill, she had some furniture. It was tossed all over the place. Her garbage area that her dad had built, with the chain link fence and the 4x4s going down 42 inches. Chain link fence and everything was torn out. All of the 4x4s, there was one, two, three, four, five 4x4s, because there was a gate in the front, because that's where the fifth 4x4 came in, torn out of 42 inches of dirt. It was sunk 42 inches deep, torn out, and just thrown all over the yard. When she came home, she called us immediately saying, I have a Dogman problem. And when she was telling me about it, she told the founder of the other organization about it, and he called me, and he gave me her number and asked me to talk to her. And she related the story to me, and she told me what happened and everything. I says, ma'am, I don't think that you have a Dogman problem at all. She goes, oh yeah, I must have it. There's everything's torn apart and this and that. And she says, I came home, from my parents' house, and she told me the destruction out there. She goes, it had to be, it has to be Dogman. It's always so peaceful out there, and it has to be a Dogman, because I've seen these shiny eyes towards the back of my property at nighttime. And I asked her, I says, did you ever have it take any pictures? And she said, yes, she did take some pictures. She had sent them to the founder of the other organization, and he never actually sent them to me. But one night she had a ruckus going on in her backyard, and she called the founder of that other organization up, and she was blowing up his Facebook messenger account. She was calling him up. He wasn't answering after a while. He called me up. He says, listen, can you go check this out? I looked on the map, and she's about an hour and 3/4 away from me. Generally, Linda, I don't go on a field investigation without a total of a 7-man team. That includes myself. And we're usually totally jocked up. We're ready to protect ourselves, because we have a right to go in and a right to come home safely. We were not hunters. My organization, the IDP, we're not out there to kill anything. However, we are going to protect ourselves if attacked. Most of the teams that I was able to ever get together, they were out. And I got 2 fellows that were still around that said that they would come with me. And I wasn't happy about this at all. We drove up there. Her house is on a main road up in New York State. And like I said, it's about an hour and 3/4 from New Jersey, from the New Jersey border. Her front door is 60 feet from a main road. Her closest neighbor on the right and left are about 150 feet away. In her backyard, out of her backyard, and about 75 feet into the next yard over, which is overgrown actually with forest area, was a red barn. And it's something to note because the barn had like a very dull light in the front of it. We went there that night. I spoke to her. She showed me the pictures of the eye shine that she took. And we located the tree where the eye shine was next to. There were no branches on this tree, Linda. The eye shine was 15 feet off the ground with no branches. So there's no owl. There's no raccoons on a branch. We went back there. We had thermal imaging. We had night sights. We had, high-powered flashlights. We had our weapons with us. We went back there to check that area out where she had taken pictures and previously showed us. We found the tree. I ran a tape measure up that tree just to see how high up this eye shine was. It's 15 feet off the ground. I'm going to get to something and explain it later, but that's not a Dogman. Dogman generally go, adult Dogmen are like 7 feet to 7 feet, 8 inches, 7 feet, 9 inches. I've never really had reports of them, up to 8 feet or anything like that. We were out there looking around. We heard some trees being pushed over. And then at one point we had I like to call it a log, but it wasn't. It was a very large tree branch that I say was about 8 inches around. and about 8 to 10 feet long. It was pitch dark up there. It was thrown at us. Now, Tom, one of my guys, and he's former special forces, he's no stumblebug when it comes to walking around in the dark. He actually hit that branch accidentally because I mean it was dark and there was a lot of branches, a lot of leaves, a lot of everything in that area. We were, trying to see what we can see back there, and he actually wrenched his knee. So we went to his aid. We took care of his knee. We got him out of there, and I went back in the house and I spoke to her and I told her what happened. And I says, "We're going to get out of here because your problem is not a Dogman problem." And she goes, "Well, what is it?" I said, "Ma'am, between the eye shine you showed me and what happened to us tonight, you have a Sasquatch problem, and it's 15 feet tall." Now, Linda, a 15-foot Sasquatch, seriously? I immediately called when I got back home. I woke my buddy up. Uh, I said, "Jay," because he's the local Sasquatch guy. He has his team up there in New York State, and they do Sasquatch stuff. His name is Jeremiah Fountain. And I said, "Jay, what we encountered," and I told him the whole story, what we encountered up there. I says, "That's a 15-foot Sasquatch." And I says, "Odds are, because the one footprint we found was about 2.5 inches deep. And this is in some solid dirt. And the footprint was about 22 inches long." We didn't stay around there, by the way, Linda, to take casts or anything. We got out of there. My teammate was injured. We had to get him out of there. I talked to the lady, and she was telling me about how she had this habit of leaving apples out on that tree stump in the back of her backyard every day and never missed it until she had to go see her mom and dad. And I told her, I said, that was a wrong thing to do, and you better not ever do it again. You do not leave food for a Sasquatch, because once you stop leaving food, it's going to get mad, or they are going to get mad. And that's not something you want to do. You want to leave a trinket here or there, something shiny, a marble, a piece of metal, whatnot. Maybe they'll trade with you, but you don't leave food because they keep expecting it. Now, I want to get back to the fact that this thing being 15 feet, I talked with Jeremiah Fountain about it, and we're figuring between the depth of that footprint and being 15 feet with eye shine, this thing could possibly, and this is unfathomable, Linda, totally crazy. It could possibly have weighed 3,000 pounds. Something that big, that wide, that heavy. We're not going to take that out with 308 rifles if it attacks us. I mean, you would definitely need something like a 50 caliber rifle, and it's not something we're going to be trampling around in the woods with something that weighs 42 pounds without ammunition. So I gave it over to Jay's group, because they're Sasquatch group, and he contacted her later. I had been speaking with a gentleman who is an author, and I don't believe I have permission to say his name or talk about his field research, but I'll tell you what happened with him. This gentleman, a big time Bigfoot researcher and author, he went into Australia, and he also went up to Alaska. And in Australia, he thinks he found something about that size, but in Alaska, he found a 15-foot Sasquatch just by the length of the stride and by the depth in the footprints that he found out there. So it's not unheard of that a Sasquatch would be a 15-footer. I mean, I never heard of this before. I was thinking 9, 10, 11 feet, possibly 12. 15 is weird. It's crazy. It's an anomaly. But if you, I study zoology. I have a bachelor's in it, and I'm going towards a master's. And anybody that has studied zoology knows that there are oddities in all walks of life. Look at the NBA basketball players. You got 7'2", 7'6". I mean, your everyday citizen isn't that tall. You have some bears that are bigger, like black bears that are bigger, like the one I came across in North Carolina. It was 6'5". The forest ranger there told us that that wasn't the biggest one. They had one that was 6'9" back in the 90s. So that's an anomaly. Down in South Jersey, they found, was it about 2 years ago, they found snakes over there with 3 heads. That's an anomaly. You have humans that are born, sharing the same body with 2 heads. That's an anomaly. Turtles with 2 heads. That's an anomaly. You have giant turtles. So there's anomalies in all walks of life. And why shouldn't there be anomalies in cryptozoology? And that's what we had there. That is one scary thing to think about, because what's going to stop it? 3,000 pound, 15 plus foot Sasquatch. What is going to stop it? And remember what happened. The 4x4s that were keeping her garbage cans, next to her house, they were pulled right out of the ground. I mean, this thing got angry. And, I gave it over to Jay. I let him take it, from there. And his people have investigated that area. Geez, I guess for 3 months at a shot, and they didn't come across it, but they did come across some pretty heavy, large and deep footprints in the area, but it may have left the area. Once again, it's upstate New York. It could have traveled up further, into the Canada area, across the border and whatnot, but they didn't find it, but they did find traces of it. And my mantra is to prove or to disprove. And we went down to North Carolina in January. People said they saw, I got 7 reports in about 10 days. And it wound up when we came back, it was like over 14 people had reported this. It was a Dogman, a large snout, close to 7 feet tall, in the area. And it was near a park area that had a lake. And I wrote about it in the IDP. I actually gave the lake's name. I hope people don't go there and get scared of anything, but I actually took a 7-man team up there. The first day we didn't find anything. Second day, nothing. The third day was a Wednesday. It was in the morning, headed towards afternoon time. We hear a big rustle in the bushes. We didn't find it. It found us. People were reporting this big dog man over there. We all took a knee. I told everybody to hold their fire until we see what it is. The 2 top guys had bear spray. Now, the significance of that is bear spray shoots out at a conical shot. And I says, we'll shoot it with the bear spray first, and then we'll go from there, because we have other things that we use when we're out in the field. We use sound. We have electronic flashbangs that use light and sound, high decibel sound. We carry lasers, and all kinds of different things to, protect ourselves before we have to go to firearms. But the 2 guys who were out front were ready. This creature came out of the bushes, was roaring, and it was extremely aggressive. It was on 2 legs. It turns out, Linda, that it was a 6'5" bear with like I said, it was an anomaly. The snout was, gosh, I want to say 22 inches long. It was a super large snout, which is why people were saying Dogman, because generally a black bear doesn't have a super long snout. This thing came out roaring. It was angry. We hit it with the bear spray. It shoved its face immediately down into the grass, rubbed it, and on 4 legs, it ran out of there, I guess, towards the water. We spoke to the forest ranger and we learned something. And here's something your audience can learn if they don't know this already. This was a black bear. They had a 6'9", 900-pound black bear. This thing looked to be about 700 pounds, which is an anomaly in itself. They had a 6'9", 900-pound black bear back in the 90s that they had to put down because it was taking people's food. It was going right up to them and taking their food. So they had to put it down. And something that we learned is that in North Carolina, and this was January, black bear do not, I repeat, black bear do not hibernate in North Carolina. That's something I did not know. And the ranger, advised us of that. And like I said, prove or disprove. I went back and I had to write in my IDP Facebook site that I'm sorry, folks, we didn't find a Dogman. We did see it. We did see the creature, but it was a large bear with, and it was an anomaly because of the snout. Um, Once again, to prove or to disprove things, because I live in New Jersey, Linda, I went down South Jersey to the Pine Barrens. Pine Barrens are something like 1,000,000 acres back there, and it's a nasty area, and that's the area where the Jersey Devil has been reported for like forever. We had been going there for about good 6 years, and we were out there, my full 7-man team. We were in the forest area. We come across a gentleman who actually owned quite a few acres in that area, and he asked us what we were doing because he says, "Gee, you guys look like military guys. Are you out on maneuvers?" And we said, "No, or we're former military, but we're looking for the Jersey Devil or signs of them." And he goes, "I want to show you guys something." He took us to his house, and his house had two barns next to it. Took us into one of the barns, and the second barn that he took us into, it had um, a top open freezer, if you can understand what I'm saying. It's not from the bottom up like a refrigerator, but lying on its, from you can open the top of it. It's about 6 feet long. Inside, he had a creature, and I identified the creature, and it looked like the Jersey Devil. The Jersey Devil looks like a horse head. It has bat wings. It has these spindly legs, these hoofy like feet. This thing was about, I would say, 4 feet in length from the head to the bottom of the feet. Had a horse's like face. Uh, in zoology, people would call it a horse bat. Some people call it a cow bat. These things grow anywhere from 2 feet up to 4 feet. And what do they do in the United States? Well, back in the 1700s, after the United States was settled as the United States of America, you used to get royalty and people coming over from Europe moving here, and they would bring lions. They would bring uh, different type of exotic snakes, exotic birds. Probably they brought horse bats here. They would bring tigers here. It's Napoleon Bonaparte's, I believe it was a brother of his was here and in New Jersey, and he had a big mansion, and he used to have a bunch of different exotic animals and pets, and a lot of times, and Black Panthers and things like that too. And that's where we get the Black Panthers in the United States, because they had brought them over from way back when, and most likely they couldn't handle them after a while, and they just released them into the wild. And that's why to this day you'll have people reporting sites of animals that shouldn't be, in the different states in the United States. But just to close off with that last story, uh, I have other things where I've been across the border over into Mexico, in search of the chupacabra, proving that was just a hybrid type of an animal. And a lot of people don't want to hear this, though, Linda. They don't want to hear what I have to say. But I got to say, I did see a Dogman on 3 different occasions. And what I saw is what I saw. Nobody's going to convince me otherwise. I've interviewed hundreds of people that have seen Sasquatch. I went to Washington State to try to find Sasquatch and never found it, but I did hear tree knocks. I did find a lot of those teepees that they build, and in interviewing people that do Sasquatch full time, and they're authors, I actually got some answers to questions about Sasquatch, and I think that's what your audience probably would rather hear. In closing, they're telling me the tree knocks is a way that they, number one, communicate with each other, and number two, they let you know that they're getting closer. The teepees. This is from doing my research now. I never spoke to a Sasquatch to find this out for sure, but this is coming from the so-called, well, nobody's ever an expert in cryptozoology, but the so-called higher ups and guys that I would consider more expertise in Sasquatchology than I have. But they said that those teepees are actually put out there to show other Sasquatch that are coming through the area that this is a safe area to bed down and to get things to eat and drink. I don't know if a lot of your people have heard about when they've gone through area where there's heavy Sasquatch activity, there are trees uprooted. And I don't mean little 2-inch, 3-inch trees. I'm talking about 8, 9, 10, 12-inch trees uprooted and shoved upside down with their roots sticking out into the ground. Now, Linda, that takes a lot of strength to do something like that. Now, I'm going to tell you what that means, because out of all the so-called, like I said, experts, and I'm not downing anybody when I say so-called, but these guys have been investigating this, and they say that that is a warning sign. That is a warning sign to other Sasquatch to stay out of the area. This is our family, our tribe area. Stay out. Something I've also found in doing cryptozoology is that while there's about 7 different types of Dogman, I'll throw a picture up here. It's a very poor picture. I'm going to have another one made, but here's one here, and then there's 7 different types of Dogman. While there's 7 different types of Dogman, there's actually 11 different types so far of Sasquatch that have been reported. Gugway being one of them. That's the face eater. The Genosquatch, which is the very big Sasquatch that generally they roll in mud and then they roll in rocks, and they have like an armor on their fur area of rock and everything. So there's just so much to investigate and so much to research on Sasquatch and the different types of Sasquatch that you have out there. Now, when I was up in Washington State, I never got to see one, but I did hear the tree knocks. I did get to hear some whoops towards the as day was just coming on us, as the daylight was coming on us and the sun was coming up. We heard some whoops all the way away from us. And little by little, these whoops were being answered by other whoops. And then we got tree knocks after that. So I was treated to some tree knocks, but I was there close to a week and I never got an eyeball on one. And mind you, we were trying to like go in tree blinds and stake out and stay in an area for 5-6 hours at a time. We had thermal vision scopes with us for nighttime, just staying still, and they never came near us. These creatures do have heightened senses, not to mention a 10, 11-foot Sasquatch is going to be awfully strong. A black bear is about 10 times stronger than a human male. Brown bear, an 8-foot brown bear, if any of your people would want to go to a zoo and take a look at what an 8-foot brown bear is, before you go out looking for a Sasquatch, look at what a brown bear is, because that might find you first. They're awfully big, and they're about 15 times stronger than a human male. So I can't imagine how strong a Sasquatch could possibly be. And I mean, Linda, to uproot a tree and then jam it back into the ground. I mean, that's really amazing. That is something. This was actually filmed by a movie company. They were doing a movie and setting up, and this this giant tree comes flying out of the woods, and they actually got it on film. I mean, I'm the founder of the International Dogman Project, Nordic Countries, and International Dogman Project USA. In the IDP, throughout the United States and throughout the world, we have different chapters. Like in the United States, we have different states with chapters, and we're growing. We're going to be opening up a chapter in Australia and one in New Zealand, also one in Europe. Like I said, we have the International Dogman Project in the Nordic countries, which is based out of Finland. And we've had that there for about 3.5 years now. I started out in my younger years through my mom in the paranormal, in other words, ghosts and spirits and the like. And I got a big interest in that, when I was like 9 and 10 and 11, going through the beginnings of high school. I did a lot of the paranormal research. I formed a couple of clubs in high school, and we used to go to different places that they say were haunted, and graveyards where you couldn't walk through without having your hair turn white and the like. And we'd go to houses where they said there were cold spots. And as today, back then, I started to get this attitude of prove or to disprove. And that's what I did back then. And I kind of dropped the paranormal because I was able to disprove a lot of that stuff. Cold spots were just holes in the roof, and they were sorted through the houses, through their heating systems, or there was a hole in a closet. Walking through graveyards at 12 midnight that they say would turn your hair gray. Well, I walked back and forth this one in particular one, and nothing happened to me. I mean, there's everybody's dead in a graveyard as far as I'm concerned, and it's probably the safest place in the world to be. Um, so as time went on, I got interested in cryptozoology because uh, my mom used to take me to the library. We didn't have Kindle back then, and Amazon and all the like, and picked up a book on the Loch Ness monster, Nettie, and also on the I guess you would call the Yeti. Then I picked up a book one day on something called a Sasquatch. I'm like, what is a Sasquatch? It was very interesting. And I mean, Canada calls them Sasquatches, and don't say Bigfoot. You're talking to somebody in Canada because they get all upset and offended. In the United States, we call them Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I mean, we're not prejudiced about that. A cryptid by any other name is still a cryptid. And I guess I've been doing cryptozoology as a full-time hobby for the last 23 years. Um, I had a encounter. Now I break things down as a sighting and an encounter. I had an encounter with a Dogman back in September 13th, 2013 in New Jersey. And from there on, it really piqued my interest. So I had I mean, it was just a big uptick since that time. And I mean, I've read, oh God, I guess it's now well over 300 books on cryptozoology subjects, interviewed well over 1,000 people in all those years. I've been north, south, east, and west in the United States, checking out different types of cryptids down in the south area and over the border into Mexico, the chupacabra, up into Canada, well, the northeastern section, the Gugway, the northwestern section, just your regular Sasquatch, uh, New Jersey, which is where I hail from. I go down to South Jersey to investigate the Jersey Devil, which is a big thing. And I've been all over, especially the last few months, of this year, all over the USA on reports on Dogman. I mean, in the International Dogman Project, we get a lot of reports on different cryptids. And the main reports that I do get, however, are on Dogman. And anytime I get that, more than one or two reports, you start putting the information together. We start investigating the area and Google Maps, talk to the people. I try to get them on Zoom, talk to them face to face. This way I can see, if they're telling me the truth or if they're just trying to, light us up and get us all excited about something. But that, in the interim, by the way, between the paranormal and the cryptozoology, I was doing UFOlogy. And presently I I don't run, I co-host two shows. One is the Cryptid Consortium, and each week we talk about a different cryptid that you basically wouldn't hear about in the news or even on Facebook or usually on any cryptozoology sites. We've been into that for 3 weeks now. We did the Ozark Howler the first week, the Mongolian death worm the second week. And just recently, we did the MIBs, the Men in Black. And Men in Black, we found, and I say we, I have two partners, Jeremiah Fountain and Gary Spikes, and we research these things heavily, very heavily. Try to interview people that have had any contact with these cryptids, and we'll discuss it right to the end. Unfortunately, the MIB one, the old saying, going down the rabbit hole. Well, this rabbit hole had about 8 or 9 different tunnels. So we decided that we're going to have to do a part 2, a part 3, and maybe a 4 and 5 just to bring enough information out to our viewers. That's what we're all about. We're about bringing the information out. And like I said before, I'm also a boots on the ground field investigator. And in doing that, I like to bring out types of equipment that you should carry when you go out there, safety procedures, precautions, what you should do, what you shouldn't do when you're out there, things you should carry. So, we'll talk about stuff like that also. I'm also a co-host with Jeremiah Fountain in On the Trail in Search of Living Legends. And that generally comes out. We do that on a Sunday. We edit it, comes out on a Monday. The Cryptid Consortium, we do that on a Wednesday, and that usually comes out on a Thursday. And you can find it on YouTube. You can also find it on Facebook. Generally, these days, I've been running the International Dogman Project. I have 3 really super great admins that are in the inner circle, and then like the IDP Southeast, IDP Southwest, they have a director in each one of those. And my admins also have their fingers in the pie there to assist. A lot of calls come through on a lot of different cryptids that people cite, and they want to report it. A lot of times they want to report a cryptid sighting, but they don't really want to give their names. A lot of times they do tell you where they saw it, but they don't really want to give you personal information. And that's because they don't want people making fun of them. I mean, if you can believe it, Linda, even in 2023 that we're in now, people still mock on people. Oh, you say you saw a dogman, you saw a mothman, you saw, a Sasquatch. Oh, what are you, crazy? People don't want to do stuff like that because basically, if they're going for a higher position where they work, and if the bosses get a hold of that, well, do you really want that person running a division of your company that they're saying they're seeing things that nobody else is seeing out there? However, every year, 3 to 4 to sometimes 5,000 people report different cryptid sightings, and probably triple that amount of people don't even report anything of what they've seen because they don't want to be criticized. They don't want to be made fun of. So, I mean, what do all these people want to get their 5 minutes of fame? I don't think so. If they say they saw something, odds are they did see something.
Going back to what you saw, I want to hear some of the details on the things that you have seen out there during your research.
That was when I saw what I saw. I had been doing cryptozoology for a while by that time, but I never could understand, when I was looking at it that whole while. And it was about a minute and 10 seconds of looking at this creature. I was coming home from work. I decided to take a shortcut going over a mountain, and it's the Watchung Reservation area in New Jersey. There's a giant flat area on the top. It used to be a Lenape Indian area hundreds of years ago. There's actually a Lenape Indian graveyard up there also. And the reason I mention that is because dogmen are reported to guard Native American graveyards, and they're seen around Native American graveyards. With all the people I've spoken to over the years, some of them have reported that they've seen dogman, and it was near a graveyard. And a lot of them even mentioned that they were Native American graveyards. I guess they're the protectors of the Native Americans. And generally, Native Americans are buried with precious jewelry, precious metals, precious stones. And I guess they had a problem with grave robbers back in the 17 and 1800s. and possibly even today. But to get back to my story, crossing over the mountain instead of going the long way home, I mean, it was about 11:30 at night. I got to the top. The top is an oval. As I hit the top, my Jeep at the time had 500,000 candle power of auxiliary lighting on it. KC highlighters is what they're called, and we used to call them candle power back then instead of lumens. And I lit it up out there as I was driving around because there's like no lighting up there. It's a park during the day for people to play in, kids to play in baseball. There's swing sets there. There's barbecues and picnic areas and the like right in dead center. But around the dead center, which is a really super large area, I would say it's, if you laid 2 football fields next to each other and then 2 and 2 more, that's about the size of it. So it's a super large oval, and you have to go around it in order to get to the street where I wanted to go to in order to get home. As I'm coming around it, I see a reflector reflecting in my lights because, like I said, I had lit up that whole area because it's dark. And I see a small bicycle chained to a stop sign. These are not regular DOT, Department of Transportation stop signs up there. This is a park, and I guess you would call the stanchion that went in the ground was 8 feet tall. The stop sign was all the way up there. And to that stop sign was leaning a small bicycle that a child would use. Now, mine just is 11:30 at night. Next to that bicycle, I saw a large black object. And as I got closer, I said, large black cryptid or creature. In my mind, I'm thinking it must be a bear. And being with my background, former paramilitary and police, we always have this idea that we're going to, try to help people out. Generally, 99% of us will do that. We'll stop and try to help. And I'm looking at this creature, and as I'm getting closer and closer in my vehicle, and I'm lighting it up, it doesn't look like any black bear that I've ever seen in the past. This thing was way taller than a black bear. Let me back up for a second and tell you that black bear generally go from 4 feet 6 inches to about 6 feet 2, and that's on the tall side. I've come across other black bear that are anomalies, and they're 6'5", and there was one in North Carolina that was more like 6'9". That's back in the 90s, but generally they really don't go over 6'2". And this thing was standing, it was bipedal, standing on 2 legs, and it was right near this bicycle. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that must be a human, and maybe they're in trouble, because there's this creature over there. And this creature, it was a lot bigger than a 6'2" black bear. I find out the next day when I went back with a team of armed guys that it actually measured to my eye on the stop sign to be 7 feet 7 inches tall. We actually put out a tape measure, and to my eye to the stop sign, that's how tall this creature was. I estimated about 650 pounds, dark black hair, I'd say 3 inches thick. The face looked like a wolf's face. The ears are perked up on the side. It was not looking at me at all. It was looking off to its left. Its right shoulder was towards me. Its right arm was down, and in the claws was a piece of meat of some sort, because I could see it lifting its hand to its mouth, taking a bite, and the hand going back down. It totally ignored me. Absolutely ignored me the whole time I was there. And I had this thing lit up with 500,000 candle power. I was looking around the area. I didn't see any humans, which was my first concern. I got out of the vehicle, had pepper spray, bear spray actually, in my left hand, 10 millimeter Glock in my right. And I'm looking at this thing while I'm outside the car, and it absolutely did not even ever turn its face towards me once. Now, what I found out in the future in researching a Dogman, the Dogman is the apex predator out there. And it probably thought that I absolutely did not threaten it in any way, shape, or form. Uh, the whole encounter, and I call it encounter, not a sighting. A sighting is when people are driving down the road and there's a cornfield on the left and on the right, and a dog man runs out and runs across the street and goes in, disappears in the cornfield across the street. That's a sighting. This was an encounter. I was approximately 30 feet away from it. It never at one time put its head my way, totally ignored me. After about a minute and 10 seconds, I would say, it walked off into the bushes in that area. And people say, oh, well, maybe it was paranormal. And I'm saying, I don't think so. Because number one, I could smell it. It smelled of blood and urine. Number two, I can see it very clearly. It had amber eyes. I didn't get a chance to see the back if it had a tail of any sorts, but it did have knees like you and I have that go forward. Some dogmen have knees that go backwards, like a German Shepherd. German Shepherd's rear legs. This thing, I could hear it walking across the dead leaves and the branches that were on the ground. So therefore, it was some sort of flesh and blood creature. As it walked away, I'm thinking maybe it's trying to go around me. So I'm looking at my six, and I decide I better get into the vehicle and lock it up and maybe get out of there. As it's walking away, I notice about 100 and I'm estimating 125, 140 feet in the direction that it's traveling. There is a bright white colored orb in the sky. And I got out of there after that because I didn't know which way it was going to go or what it was going to be. Personally, it looked to me to be like a werewolf, but most werewolves are about the size of the human that they turn from. That they, being a human and then you turn into a werewolf. If you're a 6-foot human, basically you're going to be a 6'1" werewolf. This thing reminded me of a werewolf, but nothing like I've ever seen. And like I said, I'd been studying cryptozoology for quite a while at that point. Never knew what that was. I come to find quite a while later that this is called a Dogman. So that was my very first encounter with one.
Was that a frightening experience?
No, not at all. Uh, it's according to the person, when you ask that question, and it's according to the person's background and their training. It's nothing that's going to really throw me. I was observing it, seeing what it was going to do, and it wasn't really threatening me, but at the same time, it didn't do any mind speak of any sort, but I did get the idea that it just thought I was insignificant. And even though it had 500,000 candle power on it, it just didn't care. It finished its meal and just walked off. And that was the end of it. Since that time, I've taken a trip and met up with a fellow researcher, D.A. Roberts. He's an author. He writes cryptozoology type of stories. He's a pretty good Amazon author. You can find him there, D.A. Roberts. He and I met up Kentucky, LBL. LBL is Land Between the Lakes. And you said your audience is generally interested in Sasquatch. That's where they want to go then. The Kentucky LBL and the Tennessee LBL. Parts of that are mainly Dogman. Parts of that are mainly Sasquatch. There is an area where they both commonly roam. However, they do not play well together. That was a spot where I had another. I got to call this a sighting because D.A. Roberts and I were there. We went there during the daytime, during the night, 1:30 in the morning. We went to the Nickel Cemetery where there had been sightings previously. We were out of the vehicle. I had a 6 million candle power spotlight that I was shining in the area so that we can get a look at the cemetery area. We got to take some pictures of the cemetery the next morning, but if we're facing the cemetery, off to our right, and I would say our 2 o'clock, we heard some heavy chest breathing. And I'm not saying mouth breathing or throat or nose. This was coming from the chest type of breathing. and it was maybe a 50 feet away from us as we're standing there. And I hit it with the spotlight, and then the bushes just totally were moving. And then off to our 10 o'clock. And in order to get to our 10 o'clock, this creature, whatever was there, had to really been moving. It had to sprint because it was about 140 feet. And I shined the spotlight in that area, and it left. Now, something of note is that the canopy in LBL, Kentucky, is so thick that even during the daytime, it's dark. And when we entered LBL, even during the day and especially during the night, we got this feeling that it did not want us there. You get this crushing feeling. It's like you really have to experience to understand. You're not wanted there, and it's crushing down on you. We heard no animals, no animal sounds there. Generally, you would hear owls, you would hear birds, you would hear crickets, you would hear deer, rabbits, whatever, running around. Even during the daytime, we never saw birds there. We never saw a deer, no rabbits, no squirrels. I mean, Linda, that's pretty odd. It's
Yeah.
really, really odd. I'm telling you. In any case, we traveled all of the roads that we could there. I had taken my H3 Hummer with us. It's a all-wheel drive all the time, so that we're not going to get stopped in anything. Whether it's mud or whatever, going over things, heavy duty tires and everything. We're going down every road at nighttime, and we're trying to see what we can see over there. We hit the welcoming center at nighttime, took some photos out there of the area of the welcoming center too. And like I said, we were there during the daytime also, and there was other people there during the daytime, but generally, the people there in Kentucky, LBL, will not talk about Dogman. DA Roberts tried it 3 different times, different places, and stores, and talking with people. Totally looked at him, totally ignored him, walked away. At the welcoming center, I asked this lady who was like in her late 50s there. She was one of the people that was a cash register person. Looked like she had been working there a while. I had a few things in my hand to purchase. I asked her the question about Dogman, and she just looked me in the face and walked away from me. She didn't even take the shirt and the mug that I wanted to buy, for LBL. I mean, they do not want to talk to you about it over there in Kentucky. Now, it's the exact opposite in LBL in Tennessee. The people in Tennessee will talk to you about it. In fact, that's where they had I guess they're calling it a massacre of a family of 4, husband and wife, son and a daughter, were massacred by a dog man over there. I guess that's going back in the 80s, early 80s. And, to this day, they still haven't really solved the puzzle. But I know in researching it and speaking with people that were there at the LBL or were alive at the time, and they had relatives telling them about it, what was done to the father and those people couldn't have been done by any known animal. The father's arm was ripped off. Okay, a bear could rip your arm off, but the bear would maul you. The little daughter was found in a tree about 200 yards away from the scene, up in a tree now, mind you. Now, that's generally a mountain lion will take its kill up into a tree, but a bear won't do that. Inside the camper that they towed behind their car, the mom and the little boy were killed, and the mom put up a hell of a fight, it looked like. There were slash marks inside there. I mean, what was done to these people could have been done by a single animal, but certain things afterwards, after the fact, would have never been done by any certain animal. So in my mind, that definitely was a dog man. 2 deputies, or I guess you would call them sheriff's deputies at the time, they used to go to this little gas station luncheonette, and the lady who owned the place, she had passed away by the time I got down there, but her daughter was still working there, and her daughter was very young at the time, but she did hear the two sheriff's deputies who would frequent that luncheonette every morning, for breakfast and coffee. They came there at 5:30 the morning after the slaughter, and they sat down, and she heard them talking to her mom. And I mean, these men were just taken back so terribly. I mean, from what they saw, it was an absolute slaughter, and these guys had never seen something like this. I went on to interview this young lady, years ago about that, and she, verified the story, that had gone on there. But getting back to Kentucky LBL, DA Roberts and I went there the last day that we were there, and we were driving around during the daytime. And on our way out, I'm driving, I see something out of my peripheral, but I'm not looking at it because I'm looking at the road. And there's other cars about 100 feet in front of me. So I'm concentrating on, staying on my side of the road. It's a narrow road you can fit, but you got to pay attention. DA Roberts, he's in the passenger side, and he yells to me, "Stop." I stop. I go, "What's the matter?" He goes, "Did you see it?" I said, "I saw something, but I didn't get a full look." He goes, "It was a dogman. It was by the side of the road. It was about a good 7 feet. It was by the side of the road. It was right near a tree. We both got out, and we went to the back of my vehicle, and this creature that he saw, he saw it full on. This creature went down the slope. Now the sides of the road, they had about a foot and a half maybe of leaves, because they don't pick up the leaves there. They're old dried leaves. And right at that part of the road, it sloped downward at a good 45-degree angle. And I look at him, he looked at me, and I'm like, "We don't have any weapons on us. We don't have bear spray. We don't have anything on us. What were we going to do? And we're not going to go after it. For us to go down that 45-degree hill, and with all the leaves and everything, I mean, we'd be tumbling down that hill. I would have wanted to put up ropes on trees and then maybe, go down there that way. But I mean, what would it have proven? What would we have done? I mean, the cryptid was there when we stopped. I guess it ran at that point, and we got out, looked, but at least we saw something. I mean, I had driven for 19 hours to go from Jersey to Kentucky LBL, and he came from Missouri. But that was a sighting. I would consider that a sighting, not an encounter. The slaughter of that family was on the Tennessee side. And if people wanted to go find where that happened in the Tennessee side, it would be extremely difficult. I've been up there with a team. I've had other people that belong to the IDP that have been up there also, but it's extremely hard to find, because it looks like the government tried to hide the situation that went on there. What they did was they took bulldozers and they put berms there, about 3-foot berms. They planted trees to make the forest area around there thick. And they took out, there was like concrete blocks in the ground with electrical outlets and the like that people could hook up to if they were going to go camping there. Because I guess you could buy a camping ticket and you can camp there and you can plug in, for the money that you paid. That's all ripped out. I mean, we've had to walk through 1.5 miles of thick woods in order to get to that area in Tennessee. Like I said, the site where the slaughter of the family happened.
Did you
But
notice anything when you got to that site? Was there anything unusual or different about it?
I didn't really notice anything unusual, except for the fact that it was overgrown and that the Park Service let it overgrow. And it was on purpose, evidently, because they really tried to cover it up, back then, by saying, "Oh, it was a wolf attack, or it was a bear attack, or a mountain lion." And like I said, none of those animals individually would have done what happened to that family. So, but I mean, we were there for a couple of days trying to investigate the area, seeing if there's any other prints or whatnot. And we really didn't find anything. But, it's been over 40 years since it occurred. And I guess whatever's been there is gone. But by this time, either, been gone by the weather, rain, wind, whatnot. And also the fact that they did bulldoze the area in and let it overgrow. So it's an interesting area, though, to go to.
So you take reports on these things. any kind of cryptid at all, I suppose.
Any type of cryptids at all. I mean, in my earlier days, I took a bunch of reports on chupacabras, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, in Mexico. And my mantra rather, is to prove or to disprove that these things exist. And when I get a sighting that's viable, I'll go and investigate it. People call all the time. Most of the calls these days I get are either on my telephone. I get emails in my email. Uh, I would say the majority come on Facebook Messenger. And then from there, I see if the people want to talk to me further. And what I'll do is I'll do a video call, or if they're close enough, I'll do an in person. I want to look at them. I want to observe the people because I want to see if it's worth our time. Cryptozoology, you have to understand, is looked down upon enough as it is to have people messing around with us and, giving us false leads and fake stories. There's enough fake stories out there to down cryptozoology. Back in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, cryptozoologists used to get grants from companies, like Monsanto, different chemical companies, the pharmacies. They would get stuff to go on safari, like into the Himalayas to look for the Yeti, to go to Scotland to look for Nessie, even to go up to Lake Champlain to look for champs and the like. But nowadays, there is no money to cryptozoologists at all, nothing at all. I call myself a cryptozoologist because I actually took two, I guess you would call them diploma courses. I had to get the courses out of the country. They came out of Europe. Two diploma courses I took, and I passed them both. And I have my diplomas displayed on my Facebook site. People can look the numbers up and see that, I did go through them. I've read hundreds of books on different cryptids. I've interviewed, oh God, I be honest with you, over 1,000 people easily. The cryptid Dogman, I guess you would call it, I don't know if you would call it festival, but where they're having one in Fort Worth, Texas on September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. September 1st is VIP day. It's going to cost a little extra money, but that little extra money gets you a full dinner, a really great dinner. And it also gets you a big bag of swag.